for me, it was the moment that we paid off our car, like our first car. Because we both brought two pretty old cars into the marriage. And I had grown up, and I think we both might have grown up just believing this thing that like, you just always have a car payment. Like you're just middle class. You're always gonna have a car payment. Just get used to it. As soon as you pay it off, then it's about to blow up. So you need to go buy another brand new car, and just you do that every 5 years.
For sure.
And so that was just the mindset that I had. And somewhere in this process, I started thinking, what if that's not true? Like, what if it doesn't have to be that way? Like, what if there was a way out of that? And so paying off that first car and not immediately taking it to a dealer to buy a new one, like it was just like a defiance of these lies that I had believed and felt like that's the way it has to be. And so there was something about that moment, the joy, the freedom, the weight off of our shoulders. We owned this car. The bank could not take it from us. Like it felt so good.
So empowering.
And it was, something about that mindset that it was like confirmation of this new belief that it didn't have to be that way. That was so empowering. And that was just like throwing jet fuel on our fire to just keep going, to keep moving forward.
Yeah. For me, it took a little bit longer. Like that moment for me was when I started seeing shapes.
Yeah, sure.
That was when I was like, oh, okay. Like there is something to this. Like, let's keep going. It was motivation to keep going. And even though I was already doing it because I loved Bob and I knew this was super important to him, and I was happy to not have to deal with it. Once we did that, I started seeing shapes. But then a few years later, we took a financial class together. And that, I walked out of that and I was like, why haven't we done this? Why haven't we done that? And he's like, whoa. Like,
I've been saying this for like 5 years.
You know, it's like you been pulling me on a skateboard, right? Like I wasn't complete resistance, but I was definitely adding some resistance to the our goal. And after that, it was like I was behind him and I was like shoving him forward, like, let's go.
Good.
Which was huge for our marriage, because once you get on the same page with something, like, honestly, like the enemy has no chance and the world better look out, because you're like ready to go, not just for ourselves, but for the Lord, So that was, I think that was a real exciting moment for us.
Yeah, for both of us, for sure.
And I think like, I love the element, we've kind of like talked around it, danced around it, but everyone who listens to the Fit and Faith podcast knows that like faith is the foundation, and we can try to put him to the side. We can try and put our faith to the side and let that be a pie chart, or it can literally be how we stand up every single day, how we breathe into every single opportunity. And I know that God is so in control of our finances when we surrender them to him. And the element of going from 7 figures to having anything paid off feels so freeing. And a lot of society never experiences that. And so I'm curious, like in that process, was there consistent like conversations around stewardship? Were you tithing at that point? Were you doing like biblical understanding of money, or was it a Dave Ramsey class? Like, I don't get it. Tell me more.
Yeah. So I think you had tithed your whole life.
I tithed my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I started tithing shortly after my kind of freak out moment in the car. I think that's kind of where it started for me. And so I think we were talking a little bit about stewardship, but I think so much of our focus was just on like, we're just a mess. And like, well,
you had been reading Proverbs and you were like, oh, Proverbs actually talks a lot about money.
Yeah. Like I was in a cycle for years of reading a proverb a day and just going through which, Proverbs talk so much about money and business. Like there's a lot there. And it was one of those things where looking back, I see how it was affecting me. At the time, I didn't see how it was affecting my thinking. And I think so much of the Bible is like this. And that's why it's so important to read the word, because it affects your thinking when you don't even realize that it is,
So true.
And so I think it was just, affecting how I was thinking and how I was operating. And so I think that was a big part of it.
Well, and that honestly is what started the business in the first place. Yeah. As he was reading Proverbs and realizing it says all this stuff about money, he's kind of like, there's something here more than that, what I've been told all my life. Yeah. So he was reading, books, whatever books, like all the famous finance books,
Sure. Yep. Think and Grow Rich. And
right,
I got it. Yep.
Totally. And, doing that, but then he was reading Proverbs and going, what, like the Bible is talking about money, and some of the things line up with what it's telling me in these other books, and some of it doesn't. And how do we reconcile this?
That kind of led to me starting a blog. And so in 2007, I started this blog talking about money, talking about the Bible and this intersection and everything that I was finding, which was interesting because it was, kind of cathartic for me to just kind of share what I was going through as I was climbing out of my mess. And God ended up using that, ended up becoming our business, in which we've been able to help a whole bunch of people. So it's been really crazy how it's all worked.
It's amazing to me that it feels very synchronous to kind of the discoveries that I was having around business as an entirety. And I'm honestly seeing this revelation, not even without force, just like across the faith, across Christians who are like being woke to the fact that like, I've been taught something that's like traditionalized and marginalized my freedom. And money being a huge element to that, and business, like passion and purpose, and this idea of calling and all of these things that I don't remember anyone when I was little being like, what's your calling, Tamra? They're like, what are you going to do when you grow up?
Right.
And that then led to, well, how much? That doesn't make a lot of money. Are you sure that's what you want to do? And so everything was, you do this based on money, not you do this out of calling, you do this out of purpose, you do this out of gifting or talent, or you do this out of revelation, right? And so as you continue to like start teaching this to other people, because you were never taught, was it just so invigorating to see the ahas and the light bulbs going off in people's lives and changing them in the process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that was a lot of my fuel that kept me going for so long. It was just having, just seeing exactly what you're saying, seeing other people who are getting things and who it's clicking with and whose lives are being impacted by me just sharing my story of something I went through, or I just figured out this way to do this thing and this worked for me. And, so I've always gotten so much joy out of that. And it's just continued over the years as we've created courses and gone deeper in some of these topics. And I think we're like getting to deeper and deeper layers of life-changing impact. And it's really fun.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like it really, when you think about a business, the best way to have a business is to serve other people.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, self-sacrificial. It actually is fueling the business to do better and to keep going and to find more ways to help people and find more ways to find more people that need to be helped, And what's exciting about that is that the Bible actually says that the greatest in the kingdom is a servant of all. And I just think that it's so interesting how he would tell us that, and that it wouldn't actually just be for someone else's benefit, that it would actually benefit us as well in doing that.
I mean, it's incredibly like reciprocal on all fronts. And there's also elements associated to that could be locked in shame of like, I've had people, you're making money off of your testimony. I'm like, isn't that kind of what the point is? Right? Like you learn something, you crash and burn, and you then have empathetic eyes to not let other people do the exact same thing. Like, oh, there's a fire over there. There's a fire over there. There's a fire over there. Or they're about to walk through the fire. Like, why would you do that? You would say there's a fire. Don't go that way. Right. Like, let me teach you the way out. Let me teach you the way through if you have to go through. Right. And so I just think that there's so much nobility to that. And it is a sacrificial, like, for the masses.